And again, I'm so moved by the underground church's response and feeling bad that he's having to come and do their
I
job,
know.
and they actually, the fact that they feel that way blows my mind. But what touches me about that is that it presses them to engage.
Mhm.
And it presses them to say, hey, we're stepping this up. We're going to, plug back in and re-engage. And I'm very moved by the fact that they're doing that, and that they're really, stepping out and starting to see it. And that, of course, a lot of those appearances, people think this is a new endeavor for me. I mean, I've been working with Afghanistan for over 18 years. I've been working with the Iranian underground church for over 20 years.
Mhm.
But none of this is a new thing for me. But when we started going, okay, we got to expedite our trips. I got to start getting there, more myself. So rather than just sending materials, I need to physically be there.
Yeah.
And a part of that was for the purpose of impartation, and for the purpose of proximity, so that they could catch it, in just being in the atmosphere of it.
Yeah.
And that was significant. At that point, especially in Afghanistan, there was a major shift that occurred within the underground church after that second visit, where I went and was like, okay, I'm going to spend more time, and I'm going to lay hands on as many of them as possible, and get them engaged, and stepping up and really pressing them more. And then all of a sudden, we started seeing the church just explode, and it just started growing like crazy. And of course, the sad part about that is that's exactly what the enemy knew. When our government threw the Afghans under the bus and abandoned them and left them, and did all of what took place, what we all watched in horror, what happened with this administration, just clearly not caring about how this impacts them. But and the reality is, all this is a plot of the enemy.
Yeah.
And it's not just a plot of the enemy influencing, from his minions, but it's also, influencing our government to make these changes. I mean, if anybody thinks this just happened, I mean, think again.
Yeah.
There's knowledge behind this. I mean, there were even movies. I put out. I think it's Lambs for Wolves, a movie that came out several years ago. I just posted a clip from it with Tom Cruise and Meryl Streep.
Yeah, Meryl Streep. That's right. Yeah, I saw it.
Meryl Streep is the main character in it, and hopefully everybody will see that as exposing the leftist party that she's very much diehard a part of.
Yeah.
But the reality is that it exposed it. They clearly lay out what would happen, and it's exactly played out. That's that exact way. So, I mean, from my perspective, this is no accident. This didn't just happen. I think what caught everybody by shock and caught them off guard is how quickly that it happened.
Yeah.
But I think when I was doing the show with Steve, I commented that that the plan of the Trump administration was to handle it completely different. It was to keep everybody on the payroll. Because he was seeing it kind of almost using it, operating it as an acquisition in many ways, and then transitioning out, but keep paying all the people that were in government to stay in place. Well, as soon as Biden was inaugurated and came in, they stopped the paychecks.
Yeah.
So you had police officers in Kabul, you had military people, even the president himself. None of them had gotten a paycheck since January. And so when all of a sudden August hits and you haven't received, you can't feed your family, and the Taliban's rolling into how's the Taliban rolling into town with, truckloads of cash? How did that happen? I mean, again, this is a sinister plot of the enemy, and working through, our governments to make it happen. And so, I mean, this is what, and I'm completely, of course, from the enemy's perspective, the whole objective was to shut down that massive move that was taking place in the underground church, because that would change the nation.
Yeah.
Now, the sad part about that is that, we've had to, get so many people, just our group alone, just my ministry alone, we've gotten over 300 out on our own. We've got about 150, 175, I think, more to go. But with each day, the Taliban is just cracking down even harder.
Yeah.
And it's getting worse, and they're still going house to house. If there's the slightest hint that somebody's Christian, they cannot buy food. They will not allow them to buy food. And now notice this, if you will, the sinister plot again of the enemy. That you've got to be a radical Muslim to buy food. Well, we're sort of moving that way too with the vaccines.
I was just thinking about that.
Yeah, it's where see, this is why the origin all goes back to Satan himself. This is the plot of the devil to shut everything down and control everything. And of course, the main objective is to stop the Church of Jesus Christ. Yeah. It's not just about making big money. That is a part of it, but the other part of it too is to completely shut down and control and dominate the church, because it's the most powerful force on the planet. Yeah. Being a part of the kingdom of God. And so what we're looking to do, if I may segue into saying this, is now they're out and into safer places. You got to realize the neighboring countries, country that I just got back from Pakistan, and a lot of these neighboring countries that are surrounding Afghanistan are supporting the Taliban. And they're advocating for the Taliban.
Why do you think that is?
Well, I mean, first of all, it's an Islamic regime, and these these countries are Muslim countries, and so they're going that direction in support. Also, they recognize. I don't think they would have done that had we not, made the Taliban great again. Again, thank you, Joe Biden.
There's a hashtag for you, people.
Yeah, I mean, that's what he's done, is he's made the Taliban. He's left them, arms. I mean, leaving keys and Humvees and tanks. I mean, most militaries, when they pull out, they blow up the ignitions and all those, the ignition switches and key switches and all those. We didn't even do that. Yeah. Leaving tons of I mean, it's just ridiculous how this was handled, and it cannot be an accident. I mean, there's
no way
an accident. Yeah. So all of the whole attempt and how this has happened. So, I mean, all of a sudden, now you've got the Taliban who overpowered Russia back when they were the Soviet Union. And now we see it with, they're seeing that as a victory over the United States. And so these governments that are around them are going, hey, you guys are kind of a superpower in many ways, so we're going to acknowledge you as that. So part of it is also fear and intimidation. Yeah, I get that. And then you got to realize too that most of these neighboring countries, the Taliban's there as well, and in certain forms and fashions, maybe not to the point to where they're controlling the government as they are in Afghanistan. But you got to realize when this all happened in the first part of August, there was only 75,000 at the highest Taliban members. There were over 350,000 police and military, Afghan police and military. So it makes no sense that they were able to, totally come in and take over. There's been a sinister plot in this, and that, of course, we know is a work and a plot of the enemy, and seeking to tear down and disrupt what God was doing as Afghanistan being the second fastest growing church on the planet.
Yeah, and it does seem like, and we were talking about this before the show, that there's a tendency that I notice with specifically in the West. I can speak from the West, being a Westerner, obviously, that social media often dictates what we care about and what we stop caring about. And so these types of crises that happen, it's like the flavor of the week, or the flavor of the 2 weeks, or the flavor of the month, where it's like everybody cares about Israel and Gaza, and it is the most important thing. And they're like, I'm making it my mission. And then the next week, something else happens about turtles and straws, and people care about that instead, and it's like, I think that there's a tendency to do that. In my heart, especially with having you on the show, is to bring this back into people's minds of just like, oh yeah, this is still happening over there. And a lot of people are still very aware of it. Like, it's not like I'm not accusing people of being willfully ignorant again and yada, yada. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is we do have a tendency to get so inundated by what the machine wants us to think and care about, that we forget about. I mean, there are Christians still suffering in Afghanistan. There are still people that are stuck over there. And you guys and others like you are doing, great work to get them out, but you're only a small group of people,
Yeah.
but a big God. We have big God. I want to say that,